Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I am super excited to be sharing ILNP's Fright Night collection. So first, I have to give a big thank you to a wonderful friend of mine who reached out and said that she was going to gift me this collection. In case you missed it, last week I shared on my community tab here on YouTube that I unfortunately didn't receive this collection from ILNP, so I wasn't gonna have a video early enough before the launch, the way that I try to normally go about my videos for them. And it was kind of a bummer. I definitely wasn't expecting it to happen. I was hoping it was kind of a mistake because I love to share these videos and especially share comparisons for you all. So I felt like I let you guys down even though it was out of my control, but it doesn't matter now because here we are with the collection and with comparisons. So I'll stop talking for now. I'll share more of my thoughts at the end after those comparisons. For now, let's get into the swatches. So first up we have Bitten, and this is described as a deep blood red jelly shimmer polish. Is it just me, or am I being gaslit with this description? Because I would consider this a flaky, not a shimmer polish, though I guess there are some flashes of a little shimmer pigment in there. It's very sparse though, so it kind of reminds me of a subtle holographic sparkle, for example, but it's just kind of hard to tell with the red jelly base. So yeah, I'm sorry, it just bothers me so much because I feel like it just adds confusion, especially to new people who are just getting into nail polish where they're like, oh, okay, this is a shimmer, but it's not. Description aside, the color on this one is just so stunning. It is your classic deep blood red for the Halloween season, and I think it is just so gorgeous. It's just that perfect deep vampy red, and it's super opaque in 2 coats. Maybe if you do thinner coats you might need a third, but I found that it was dark enough to obscure any nail line, especially with all the flakies layered up. And in extreme angles, the flakies even have this golden glow to them. It was so pretty. Next up we have Flicker, and this is a light gray polish with glowing orange to yellow iridescent shimmer. So this one had more of a crelly kind of base, but it still was very even coverage on the first coat alone, so it's easy to build up to be fully opaque in 2 or 3 coats depending on your preference. But yeah, I actually liked how it looked on the 1 coat because it just had this really eerie, spooky kind of vibe to it. I might even go as far as saying that this was one of my favorites from the collection, which I feel like is so strange because I don't know, this just seems like such an understated color, but there's something about this one that I think is just so beautiful. I think it's that warm orange to yellow shimmer, which is actually a shimmer particle. It is just so glowy and adds so much warmth to an otherwise cold kind of color. The next polish we have is Abracadabra, and this is a bewitching indigo shimmer polish with a pinch of gold metallic flakes. So this was definitely another standout. I am just such a sucker for a rich indigo shimmer like this, especially for this time of year. Formula-wise, as you can see, it was a little bit sheer and streaky, maybe not super impressive on the first coat alone, but it definitely builds up to be fully opaque in 2 coats for me, and it is just so mesmerizing. I think on the second coat, the base color definitely deepens up a lot to the point that it basically looks black. Like on the first coat, you can see that it was even kind of an indigo sort of color itself, but you sort of lose that purplish base color and you only really see the indigo shimmer, which is still absolutely beautiful. It is just so glowy and almost has that like lit from within look. It is really stunning. And I also do like the little micro flakes in there, though I had a hard time seeing that they were gold. I just thought they were silver. The next polish we have is Carved, and this is an intense orange polish ignited with fiery orange-yellow sparkle and shimmer. So even though this one definitely does have a shimmer particle in it, I would also say that there are some larger golden metallic flakes in here as well. So the finish is a little bit more interesting than if it was just a shimmer or just a micro flaky, if that makes sense. There's just that combination of both of them. So formula-wise, this one had really great coverage on the first coat. It was very even with little to no bald spots, but it still was a little bit sheer where in extreme angles you could still make out some nail line. So I did a second coat for this one and decided to stop there because it was opaque enough for me. There's just a lot of shimmer and flaky particles going on that it is just super distracting from any nail line. I think this was another favorite from this release. It just has such a beautiful glow to it. The next shade we have is Frankie, and this is a monster green polish pieced together with lime green magnetic pigment and scattered holographic microflakes. So this was actually another one of my favorites from this release, which I feel like is so rare that the green is my favorite, but this one was just so pretty. It has a great formula. I would say it's kind of on the jelly side, so there are some sheer spots, especially near the tip of my nail, but it still has a lot of great coverage because of the magnetic shimmer and all of those holographic sparkles. There is a ton going on in this polish, and it is so sparkly and so pretty. So even though you can see a bit of my nail line near the tip still after the second coat, I just didn't find it necessary enough to do a third coat. I just stopped it here because it was really full coverage, or at least enough for me. But I did want to also show you how this looks with the velvet effect, which I love doing. It's just my preference when it comes to magnetics, and the easiest way that I do them is by holding the magnet next to my nail and doing my first coat and then immediately moving the magnet to the other side to shift all of that magnetic pigment around. And it just creates such a beautiful dimensional kind of glow to it. It almost reminds me of sparkling moss or something, just so enchanting. I think it looks nice on its own though. It just kind of has a bit more of a flat effect with the shimmer. And rounding out the collection, we have Shapeshifter, and this is described as a chocolate brown accented with reflective metallic flakes and subtle holographic sparkle. So the flakes are a copper color, and when they say that they're reflective, they mean it in a mirror-like way, not reflective like flash reflective, so you don't need to worry about that. But this was actually another favorite of mine from this collection, which is kind of strange to me because I guess this one reads more as a fall polish than Halloween. But thinking of the name Shapeshifter, it just reminds me of like creepy urban legends, and it just kind of freaks me out, so I don't want to think about it too much. But yeah, this is such a beautiful deep brown shade. I feel like it's very warm, like it almost has a reddish undertone maybe, but it could also be the copper flakies in this one that just give it that glow from within. So I'm not sure exactly what it is about this color, but it just has me in a chokehold. The formula was easy to work with too, by the way. It was perfectly opaque for me in 2 coats. So here is the collection lineup, and I think it looks so gorgeous this year. We obviously have some expected shades like blood red and the bright orange, but I still really love all the others. So getting into comparisons, we're starting with Bitten and looking at it next to Cirque's Snozzberry, which don't mind my itty bitty bottle. It was from last year's advent calendar. And this is the closest shade that I have to a dupe for Bitten. It's another super deep blood red kind of jelly base with these flakies. But I think the flakies in Snozzberry are a little bit more on the iridescent side, so they can flash green and blue, but the base is also a little bit lighter as well, so they're not exact dupes, but definitely very similar. Next for Flicker, I wanted to show it next to Holo Taco Spirit Fingers from the recent Sophia collection, but unfortunately it has been sold out twice at this point. I knew these weren't going to be dupes, but I just wanted to show them in case you were curious. They both are a gray with a really intense shimmer. The base in Holo Taco is darker and a little bit cooler, but the shimmer is also very obviously pink, so I tried to recreate Flicker by using Olive Ave Storm as my base color, which is definitely not the right shade of gray, but I tried to see if using Scorched Earth would kind of give that glow, and it's kind of there, but I feel like it was just missing the yellow that you see in Flickr, so I decided to also layer Halogen Glow on top of that, and I feel like this shimmer combination is pretty similar to what we see in Flickr, so if you happen to have these two and a slightly different colored gray base, you might be able to just recreate this one. Then for Abracadabra, I wanted to show this next to Nocturnal from last year's Halloween collection. They kind of have that similar indigo blue sort of glow going on in there, but it's more of a microflake in Nocturnal and a shimmer in Abracadabra. So I knew those wouldn't be quite dupes, but a closer shade that I immediately thought of was Mooncat's Midnight Rider from the somewhat recent Midnight Rodeo collection. These definitely have much more of a similar overall finish. I think if anything, Mooncat's base leans a little bit more blue as opposed to how purple Abracadabra was, but because that one's on like the indigo side, it's hard to tell. And the base in Nocturnal is pretty much black, so that one's definitely not really a dupe. So yeah, I think if you have Midnight Rider, you wouldn't really need Abracadabra. They are virtually the same. The only other major difference is that little scattered Holo flaky, where it's a little bit larger in ILNP. Next for Carved, I of course had to show this next to ILNP's Pumpkin Patch from last year's Fall Harvest collection. It's another absolutely gorgeous glowing orange with these really beautiful golden microflakes, but hopefully you can see there is a slight difference in the base colors where it's a little bit more of like that traffic cone orange on Carved's side, and it's a little bit more yellowy orange on Pumpkin Patch's side. So on the nail, they definitely are reading a little bit more similar on camera than in real life, but again, these two are super similar. You'll have to let me know if you think these are dupes or if you think it's worth to have both. Then for Frankie, I of course had to show this next to Venom from last year's Halloween collection. These definitely have that same kind of magnetic shimmer where it's that brighter green, almost chartreuse kind of color. But the main difference with these is their base colors, where it is a super deep, like blackened green on Venom's side, while it's a much brighter green on Frankie's side. So totally different vibes, definitely not dupes. So since Frankie was so light, I thought maybe it would be worth showing it next to Cirque's All In from the Kelly Marissa collection, because it's just one of those really bright greens. All In obviously has an orangey kind of shimmer in there, so I wasn't really focused on that. It was more of the base color, but as you can see on the nail, All In is a lot more sheer and yellow leaning, so it just doesn't have that same depth as Frankie does. And lastly for Shapeshifter, even though I don't have anything quite like it, I still wanted to show it next to Mooncat's Stumped because it's another deep brown jelly filled with flakies, but obviously the flakies are very different, where it's a lot larger in Mooncat and also more of an iridescent rainbow shifting glow, while the flakies in Shapeshifter are just copper. But the bases are a little different too, where it's just lighter and more sheer on Mooncat's side. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for ILNP's Fright Night collection. So as always, I would love to know what your thoughts are on this release. I feel like ILNP always nails their Halloween releases, even though I kind of have been seeing a trend of just having orange after orange, or we've had a couple of reds the past few years. And I know they are like expected Halloween colors, but they're just like slightly tweaked. So the only one I feel like I could have done without for this lineup was probably Carved, even though I feel like it is also very iconic to the lineup. So I feel a little conflicted. Like, obviously I want to love them all equally and say that they're all amazing, but seeing some of their own comparisons that they share to their stories, it's almost uncanny how similar some of these shades are to shades that they already have in their collection. I already mentioned this in another video, I think it was for Cirque, where it's gonna happen at some point that brands are releasing shades that are basically variations of shades they already have. So I'm curious to know what you guys think, especially of a shade like Carved, where it's like the third orange in a row. But overall, I'm still a big fan of this collection, and I'm just feeling so grateful that I had somebody reach out to me to gift this, because I was just gonna pick it up myself. Honestly, I was like, oh, it could just be like an early birthday present and I can share it with you guys whenever I get it in, if I had time, depending on how my schedule was looking. And just to kind of clarify on the whole me not getting PR from ILNP, it's not something permanent. I just don't think I can really share any more beyond that. So I'm hoping that this is a temporary thing, maybe like a season or two. Honestly, I don't know, which is unfortunate because I wish I did know, but obviously if I did know, I still wouldn't be able to share that information anyway. So we're gonna kind of have to play it by ear. Whenever they announce the next collection, I'll maybe put up a little post on that Friday to let you know if I did receive it or not, because I would hate to keep you guys like waiting or expecting on a video and I don't have one, you know? So it kind of sucks, but we'll just go with it. I know so many of you guys were like really supportive too, and I really appreciate that. Again, it's nothing like I did something wrong or they were like, you know, they don't want to work with me anymore. I think they're just maybe restructuring things behind the scenes. And so I just got knocked off for now. So anyway, with all that being said, let me know your thoughts down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.